What's up, guys? It's Sad Zilla with another episode of Zilla Mode, and today what I want to talk about is 2020 and how it affected not only music, but social media and how we interact with everyone around us in general. First part that I want to kind of get into is what I was doing before 2020. Before 2020, when it comes to music, and maybe even to a certain degree, social media, I was playing live shows. I was, living a very extroverted lifestyle. I was always out there, connecting with my, other artists and communities and, just constantly communicating with people in person for the most part, right? But also, like I said, playing live shows and even doing hangouts, where we'd record at the house and make songs together and all different kinds of stuff, right? And it was always cool to build a community that way, right? In person. And it's something that I feel like over the course of the last 4 to 5 years we have taken for granted, where we were at that time. And it's really unfortunate because it was like we were sharing the experience, right? And when we separated, that's when it just became very disjointed. And that's what I want to talk about next, is when we kind of separated. And it all happened, obviously, because of the pandemic, because of COVID, and, social distancing and everything like that, definitely impacted the music scene. We were not, doing shows like we were before. All of a sudden, social distancing and everything like that kept us away from, coming together in groups even, it was scary and weird and just strange. How one day we were always hanging out and we were always creating together. And then the next day, all of a sudden, now we can't do that anymore. And now we are, by ourselves, we're alone. Right. And it's crazy too, because Gen Z right now, and this just came to mind, Gen Z is becoming the loneliest generation. They're a part of, or they're in the middle of a lonely epidemic. And I think that's really interesting because I think that COVID probably had a huge part of that. And I can definitely understand why, because, there's times in my life where I'm just I feel like I'm alone or something, in this game, and this, I have a few friends that always stick around and they're always there, right? And, we talk about our experiences and everything, but usually it's over the phone and stuff like that. Another part for me personally is, I had a son, I became a father. So that was a huge part of also what kind of separated me as well. But it was beyond that. I mean, we're talking about everybody, right? I mean, everybody was kind of, separated. And over that course of that time, I'm not gonna lie, it lasted about 2.5 years. It felt like, I was, like I said, I was a very extroverted person, and even I became introverted to a certain degree, and actually probably more than I ever would have suspected I would. The artists that I would collaborate with and, hang out with all the time, when it came to, my rise as an artist, really happened during the 2020 pandemic, because everybody was home, listening to music and everything like that. And so just everything was so much more heightened. And, these friends that I would hang out with, these other artists, these local artists, I mean, they started looking down on me. There was a part that was proud of what I had done, right? Sure. But it seemed less than. It seemed it's not the same, right? When I was at their level online and things like that, it was fine, no, there wasn't a lot of, shit talking going on. But once that started happening, of course, that's always going to happen, right? You'll get haters, even friends, people that you thought were friends, will start hating on you. But even then, they had kind of gone through the same thing that we had all been going through, with COVID and everything. And next thing they're seeing what I'm doing, and they're feeling alone, in this game, and there's not much I can do to help them because, I'm not around them. And if, unless I'm communicating with them directly, I can't really like be there, right? And so they'll hear through, the grapevine, oh, he's doing this, oh, he's doing that, and then just look down on it, The community aspect is what I'm getting at, is like what kept us together and what kept us on the same mindset. But now, and since then, like it's just been broken. It's been disjointed. And now, you know, it's not the same, right? Like the way that they see music is different than the way that I see music. The way that they see, writing and creating is different than the way that I see it. And a lot of that has to do with how we view the world around us, which is, when I'll get into the social media part, and that's really the big part that I really want to talk about. Yeah, like everybody that you would see was like an entrepreneur online. After 2020, everybody had to be like a freelancer or something like that. They had to be on the hustle. They had to be on the grind, trying to make something of themselves online. And that came with music as well. So, I got on the grind. I started going after it. After I found out I was going to be a father, I really went after it. And that led me to really finding my audience and really finding, listeners that liked my music. And I really started leveling up in that regard, right? And it was probably less than a year that it started really becoming a reality as far as like it becoming my full-time job. That online space, right, with everybody kind of changing the way that they were looking at social media, including myself, it gave us an opportunity to like democratize that discovery. Like we had the opportunity to kind of pave our own path to success. After I started really diving into the online space, the grassroots stuff and playing shows and everything like that, even when things started getting back to normal after 2020, I was not even that enthusiastic about getting back and playing live shows or doing any of that grassroots stuff. And when it came to that stuff, like my friends from then, like my artist friends from then, they were all about it. And I quickly started realizing that the change was really happening pretty rapidly, especially on my end when it comes to social media and how it was going to change music. Because now all of a sudden it was about those numbers. It was about, these underground artists all trying to get their own bag, right? They were all trying to find some kind of success online. And it became very much oversaturated. Everybody was getting into music. Everybody had the ability to make music. And so everybody's trying to get in and they see what's popular, genres come and go. At one point, emo rap was a huge thing. So everybody was an emo rapper. Everybody's getting face tats. Everybody's, a SoundCloud rapper or whatever the case may be, right? And then that like started blowing up. This is actually kind of before 2020. And then after that, it was like dark trap and like Suicide Boys, Ghost Main, things like that. Zilla, trap metal was a huge thing, at least in my world. Bands were like a thing of the past. So, metal artists like myself started getting into the solo music game. And that's when, they started really mixing these like alternative sounds. So that's just me personally and my experience. But you get what I'm saying. Like whatever's popular is something that people kind of gravitate towards, and then they're just like, well, I got to do this. Another one was funk. Funk was a huge genre, and everybody jumped on that and rode that wave until it kind of died out. It's kind of died out now, and it is what it is. I had my group chats with these other underground artists, and it was a community. I would say it was a community, but it wasn't like the same as like what I had like in person, right? And so what I mean by that is now all of a sudden, even though we are connected by a community, it still feels disjointed. And I think that's a thing in social media in general, is that like it feels very fractured and separated. And I think a big reason for that is because like we all live in our own little bubbles, our own little algorithms, right? So we all have a different way of looking at the world, looking at music, looking at, what works, what doesn't work, or, like the way that you even approach like music marketing, for example, can be drastically different than how somebody else does, just based on the people that they watch on YouTube or watch on TikTok or watch on whatever. And so, it's things like that, and just the combination of, there's so many other things, politics and religion or whatever the case may be, any kind of drama, right? Everything like gets, optimized and modified so that it fits that narrative, so that it, people don't swipe away and everything. And so, songs are getting shorter. The clips of how much you show of a song gets shorter because, you don't want people swiping away. So, just all different kinds of stuff, right? It becomes to the point like where it gets like very, very noisy, and it's just super, I don't know, it's really competitive and kind of toxic to a certain degree, because the way that people act online, they wouldn't act like that in person, right? I mean, I'm sure everybody that's watching this knows what I mean when I say that. But now it's interesting because now I want to talk about the future, because I think that like it's starting to shift back. It's starting to revert back to maybe something that is a little bit more real and authentic. For like the longest time, like I said, everything's super over polished and just very optimized so that it keeps people's attention. And when everybody knows all the tricks in the trade, everybody knows all the hooks, the video hooks to keep you interested. When everybody knows all of the right music styles that get views and get, is ear candy for somebody. When everybody knows this stuff, everybody uses it, it becomes like just noise at some point, right? And so I think that because of the Mr. Beastification and the TikTokification of, content in general and music, that effect, it just feels like everything around you is an advertisement. And so therefore music promotion, it suffers. And you can't even like get through the noise to really like stand out, like if you're trying to promote your music on TikTok or anything else, right? And so now I think that it's starting to it's going to be reverting back to something more authentic. I think like where we're going to be going now is we're going to have to start telling stories. We're going to have to start, maybe kind of almost like vlog your experience to the public, really get them into your world, and then using that to start writing song ideas that then people will see the songwriting process kind of happen, and then that turns into a song, and then they relate to that song because maybe they relate to your experience, whatever it may be. Maybe you're going through a bad breakup, maybe you just got a new car, maybe you can't even afford a car because you can't even afford groceries. Whatever the case may be, whatever you're trying to tell people about that's going on in your life, if you can somehow translate that into a song, people can then relate to it even more than they normally would have if you just posted a video of you performing the song, with CapCut lyrics on it or something like that, right? Because like the bait in that case is going to be you. It's going to be authenticity, which I think people will stay longer for that. We're already seeing it right now. Like artists are now using this trick where they act like the beginning of the video is a real video from like Snapchat or something like that they took with their camera, like they're watching somebody else. And then it turns into a live performance video, which just really helps with keeping that retention because people are looking for that. They don't feel like they're being advertised to until they're being advertised to. But at that point, they've kind of been tricked and, they've been duped, to say the least. And sometimes maybe they react negatively to that eventually, but right now it seems like they're reacting pretty positively. A lot of creators and artists have found success doing that kind of strategy, and it makes sense. It makes sense that people are looking for that kind of stuff, and the reason why they wouldn't look away is because that's what they're looking for. It should tell us a lot about how people are operating online on social media. I'm even seeing it like on YouTube. The new meta is basically like doing what I'm doing right now, where I'm just talking to a camera, I'm talking about my thoughts, I'm giving you guys my perspective, and I see that in my feed as well. So, that's I think that's where it's kind of going. That's where it's starting to lean into. So, more into the storytelling. The stats and the social proof, I think that will be less and less important as things go on. I think like with, I was talking to somebody today about this. I said, what are you going to do if, or how do you think you'll react if they take away monthly listeners off of Spotify, or they take off stream numbers off of Spotify? And he told me, he's like, well, I don't know. I guess we would just have to do the same thing we're doing, but like it would change the way that people perceive things. And he says, why would you, do you think they would even do that? And I said, well, with, there's a lot of allegations going on against Spotify about like whether or not some artists are, botting their streams, like big artists like Drake and things like that, right? And then also they've been allegedly putting AI or AI music in there, and they're botting it, or they're putting it on playlists, or whatever the case may be. So if you have less of a proof of that even happening, right? You don't even know what other people's numbers are. Then you have to view music like on the same schedule, on the same level, right? Drake and you don't have monthly listeners. You don't have stream numbers or whatever. Like everybody's on the same level. And so I think that that might be somewhere where we will be ending up later on. But I think like overall, what I'm getting at is, it's going to get back to a community base. I think that people will be doing more shows. I'm seeing a rise in bands again. So people collaborating musically together, putting music together in that way. It's becoming more and more popular because everybody is kind of, doing their, everybody's a rapper on TikTok or something like that. Everybody's a solo artist or whatever, and it's very easy to do that. It's much more impressive now to play live instruments and have, a group of people that you make music with. I think that's where that's kind of going. Overall, I have no real idea where things are going. I mean, I have an idea, but I don't really know where it's going to go. I can't, I'm not Nostradamus. I can't see the future, but, I do think that authenticity and storytelling is the future. That we will probably be leaning more into. Social media will be less about filters and more about, like the cool thing to do would be like be more human, I guess, especially with the rise of AI and everything like that. It's, there's even like, honestly, there's talk about right now, more and more about like not having a social media presence, not having a digital footprint, and that kind of being a signal of wealth or, coolness factor, I guess, which is crazy because that would make, our grandmothers and grandfathers the coolest people in the world, right? But anyway, I just wanted to wrap up this video with you guys. It's just some thoughts that I had about where and how 2020 affected us and where we are right now in music and in social media, and where I kind of see things going. So take that for what it is. Hopefully you guys got some valuable information out of my mindset on this. It makes me rethink a lot of things and how I approach some of my content. But anyway, hope you guys have a good night. And next time, let me get some comments in there and we can answer some questions maybe. Like and subscribe as well. And yeah, anyway, until next time, hope you guys have a good one. Peace.